Hi everyone, welcome to this live stream. This is Arvind Chatterjee from Anastasis. I hope I'm clearly audible. If I'm clearly audible, let me know on the chat box. So we will be tackling certain critical reasoning questions today, and we will also learn a few deep concepts that are required in critical reasoning. Okay. So here is the first question that you have. Go ahead. You can start solving the question. Let me also open the, meanwhile, let me open the stream on my phone so that I can keep a tab of comments. Okay, here you have a typical question from XAT CR, and it is what kind of a question? It is a conclusion question. Okay. So how would you solve this particular conclusion question? Television programming experts maintain that with each 1% increase in the primetime ratings of a television station, there is a 3.5% increase in the number of people who watch its evening news program. So this particular statement is what you call the premise. Okay. Now, with each 1% increase in the primetime ratings, okay, there's a 3.5% increase. This is a clear correlation, data-driven, factual premise. However, in the last 10 years at the channel NTR, there was only 1 year of extremely high primetime ratings. And during that year, fewer, so the number became less. Fewer people than ever watched channel NTR's evening news program. Okay, so the scope is set. We are talking about the evening news program through and through. So which of the following conclusions can be drawn? What is your answer, guys? Go ahead. So the option A, let's look at it. When a news program has good ratings, the channel as a whole will have good ratings. Does that follow? So we are talking about a situation where a 1% increase leads to 3.5% increase in the number of people. Does that mean that as a whole we can make this reduction? Like as a whole is too strong, isn't it? The programming experts neglected to consider. Now, what did they do? What did they didn't? I mean, we cannot really comment on that, right? The year of high ratings at NTR was a result of two hit shows. Now, where are the hit shows coming from? So, out of scope options are pretty clear to eliminate, isn't it? The 10-year period in question is not representative of a normal viewing patterns. Now, do we know the abnormal ones so that we can comment on the normal ones? No. Prime time ratings are not the only factor affecting how many people watch an evening news program. Now, since we are drawing correlations through and through, right? Through and through, we are talking about correlations. This looks like a generalized good conclusion, isn't it? Let's look at our answer. So, guys, please comment if you have any doubts with this particular question. Okay, so I'm moving to the next question here. Here you go. So we have a local department store hires college students for 1 month every spring, okay, to audit its unsold inventory. Now, what does this audit its unsold inventory mean? To know how many of the products were unsold, correct? It costs the department store 20% less to pay wages to students than it would cost to hire outside auditors from a temporary service. It's pretty clear again. We have a very cost efficient method to do the auditing, which is to give the entire job to students rather than outside auditors. Even after factoring in the costs of training and ensuring the students against work-related injury, the department store spends less money by hiring the student auditors than it would by hiring auditors from the temporary service. So we are talking about, let's say, uh, we are paying for their insurance, we are paying for some other costs there. All those factored in, a student, a student salary is less than outside worker salary. Clear cut relationship we have here, right? The statements above, if true, best support which are the following assertions. What type of question is this? Please comment, let me know. What kind of a question is this? This is a conclusion type of question. Okay. Now, what conclusion can be drawn properly from here? Go ahead. Let's look at the options. The amount spent on insurance for college student auditors is more than 20% of the cost of paying the college students basic wages. Now, how do I know the difference between the basic wages versus the insurance? Like, there is no data to support that, correct? It takes 20% less time for the college students to, time comparison is out of scope pretty much. The department store pays its college student auditors 20% less than the temporary service pays its auditors. Now, the overall amount being paid to auditors versus the overall amount paid to the students, again out of scope. By hiring college students, department store will cause 20% of auditors at temporary service to lose their jobs out of scope. The cost of training its own college student auditors is less than 20% of the cost of hiring auditors from the temporary service. Now, obviously, if this entire thing is less than the overall being paid to the outside workers, then the training itself will be less than 20%. If it is more than 20%, then it becomes more. So therefore, your answer becomes option B. Any doubts, guys? Let me know quickly. Okay, okay. Guys, with this, these were two of the typical CR questions that you come across in the XAT exam, right? Now, with this, I would like to go ahead and introduce certain concepts of critical reasoning. Now, the concepts of critical reasoning underlie what you call critical thinking. Okay. So XAT VALR, around 2 to 3 questions every year. I mean, this year there have been significant changes. XAT keeps on changing their pattern a lot here and there, right? So this year you have 2 to 3 CR questions, and obviously you know that the part one of part one of your XAT test will be pretty much decision making, verbal ability, logical reasoning, and all those things. And if you want to avoid a negative marking, you want to maximize on the verbal ability, critical reasoning. Why? Because 3 to 4 marks directly, and the long RCs that you get, they are pretty in depth. They have got like deeper insights into them, and that's why critical reasoning skills come into the picture here, right? With that, let us dive into the concepts. If you have any doubts, just message me on the chat. I'm watching my messages from the phone. Here we go. Let's talk about strategic relevance of your critical reasoning. Okay? That is designed to filter for future leaders. Okay, so just like CAT is, right? In the boardroom, you are going to face many situations wherein you will have heated debates with your colleagues, right? You will have disagreements. So at that point in time, critical reasoning really helps in designing the arguments and everything. So first, the first idea is distinguishing facts from opinions. This is very, very important, right? What is an opinionated statement? What is a factual statement? If I say that earth is round, okay, is it a factual statement or is it an opinionated statement? Okay. However, both can perform the function of a premise inside arguments. Second, spotting flaws, identifying holes in business plans. I mean, this is part of decision making, right? In a way. Let's move on. What are the critical structural aspects of an argument? Anatomy of an argument, if you might call it. The first is premise. The premise are those which are supposed to be taken as facts. They don't have to be factual statements, by the way, but they are supposed to be taken as facts inside an argument. Okay. They are non-negotiable, right? So if you look at the example, sales are down 20%. Now, how are you supposed to interpret this data in the argument? Sales are really down. This is unquestionable. Assumptions, well, this is your invisible bridge which connects the premise and the conclusion. Okay? The unstated conditions that must be true for the conclusion to hold water. Now, for example, if you look at my premise here, sales are down 20%. If you look at the conclusion, you need a new CMO. Then the assumption would be that marketing impacts sales, right? Chief Marketing Officer, CMO stands for, right? So this assumption will not be directly given to you, but it is something that you need to find out. So if I give you the statement sales are down 20%, and then I say therefore we need a new CMO, you will have to say the assumption is marketing has some sort of an impact on sales. The conclusion is the main claim. The main claim as in what exactly is the author trying to convey with his argument, right? Okay, let's go forward. Okay, let's some words more on the premise. Okay, premise is a statement that supports the conclusion, and it's directly given. In that, never attack the premise. I mean, in other exams also, in critical reasoning, never attack the premise because the premise is unquestionable, right? If the text says the sky is green, for the purpose of the question, the sky is green. You are not supposed to consider it blue or something else, right? Your job is to analyze how these facts are used, not whether they are true in the real world or not. What are the indicators for premise? Because since given that, as shown by firstly, right, it has been observed that these are your indicators for a premise. Now, anything you don't understand, guys, just chat message. Okay, I'm here on the available on chat message. I will answer. The key term is assumption. Now, as you know, entire CR, the photo that you see here is that of an iceberg, right? I mean, the tip is visible, but the bottom half or the majority of an iceberg is actually not visible. So, if you want to be very good with critical thinking and critical reasoning skills, the key skill is finding assumptions in anybody's arguments. Okay. So an assumption is a piece of information that is not written in the text, but is absolutely necessary for the argument to survive. Okay. Any doubts with this definition? An assumption is a piece of information that is not written in the text, but is absolutely necessary for the argument to survive. Now think of it as the underwater piece of iceberg, the example that I just took, right? The negation test is the central core. Remember this. If you want to know whether an assumption, as in let's say the question is find the assumption and there are 5 options, and if you really want to know whether an assumption is true or false, you have to perform the negation test. The key idea is if you make the assumption false, the argument should collapse immediately, right? Let's also talk about conclusions. Now, how many kinds of conclusions are there, guys? Like what kind of conclusions the author can draw? Okay, if I ask you, what would be your answers? Go ahead. Give me your ideas. How many kinds or types of conclusions can be drawn? You can give a descriptive answer on the chat message. How many types or kinds of conclusions can be drawn? Simple question. Go ahead. You're all XAT takers next month. This much you have to answer. Waiting for some messages. Waiting for some. Okay. No replies. That is scary from a candidate perspective. So if I talk about the kinds of conclusions, you have two basic types. One is called implied conclusion. Okay, this is difficult. Why? Because it is not given directly. It is kind of implied through the argument. So I might say that, oh, what a lovely day. People have suffered so well today. So I'm being sarcastic. The conclusion is not a good day, right? You are not supposed to take it literally. Oh, what a lovely day means what a lovely day. So this is an implied conclusion. Okay. So in implied conclusions, is especially in CR, it's very important to state the conclusion in your mind before you jump to the questions. Okay. And direct conclusions are those that are written directly. Okay. And then you strengthen, we can find the assumption, whatever. Okay. Therefore, so hence, these are your conclusion indicators for stated conclusions. Obviously, for implied conclusions, no such indicators will be there, right? I mean, implied means that the conclusion is indirect in a way. Okay, let's talk about the difference between an inference and an assumption. Okay, now As you can see, there are two examples being given to you. First, let's read out the definitions. An inference is something that must be true based only on the information given. It is a deduction. It does not bring in outside info. This is an inference for you. Okay. What is an assumption? Something that supports the conclusion but is not stated. It brings in outside logic required to make the argument. So, which one of them will have outside info? I mean, can have. Will have is too strong. Assumptions can have outside info, right? Now, let's talk about the examples. Inference. If all A are B and X is A, then X is B, right? Now, I mean, all the A's are B's and all the X's are A's. So it follows definitely, deductively, then that X is B. This is your inference. No outside info. X and B were already there in the original part, in the original if statement. Assumptions. If plan A worked before, okay, assumption is that conditions haven't changed. So if plan A has worked before and it is working now, then the assumption would be that the conditions underlying it haven't changed. Okay. Now conditions were not really spoken about in the example, right? But they are still there. So assumptions can have outside info, right? This is very controversial. I know many of you have been taught that assumptions will not have outside info. But in XAT level critical reasoning, you might see certain words that are critically, you will think that they are outside the text. But remember one thing, they are not really outside the text. They are part of the scope of the reasoning, okay, in a way. So manipulating arguments, like what kind of tasks you will be given in the questions. You might be asked to strengthen an argument, okay. This is pretty easy. You have to find a new fact that makes the assumption more likely to be true. Okay, always find the assumption first, therefore, right? We can find a new fact that attacks the assumption. Okay, you're showing that the bridge is broken, kind of, right? I mean, in order to weaken, you have to say the assumption is wrong. Paradox, let's leave that right now, we'll get to it. Right now, just remember that in strengthen and weaken, in both, you are supposed to find the assumption first. Okay. People who do not find the assumption to an argument are taking a shortcut, and that shortcut is sometimes fatal. And you should all remember that XAT is kind of a test where your accuracy matters more than attempts. Okay? I mean, if you are taking a lot of attempts without maintaining accuracy, that's not good. 50 to 60% of the questions have to be done with accuracy. That should be your strategy, right? Kiddos, let's talk about methodology. First, read the obviously first read the type of the question you have in front of you. Okay, first distinguish what kind of question you are doing. Strengthen, weaken, paradox. What is it? Wait, suddenly an ad opened, so obviously I lost you all on the way. Just a moment. Any questions, just let me know, guys. I'm here waiting for the questions on the chat message. None are coming up. Okay, first you deconstruct the argument. First you read the stimulus. Okay, so do I have to strengthen? Do I have to weaken? Do I have to find the assumption? Okay, identify the conclusion. What is the primary message coming from the author, right? Separate it from the premise. Simple. Identify conclusion, identify premise, look at them separately. Pre-think. Before reading options, predict the flaw or the assumption in your mind. This takes a bit of practice, so please practice a lot predicting what the answer can be. Okay, then eliminate. Aggressively discard options that are out of scope or extreme, left with the best fit. Simple. Okay, deconstruct, pre-think, like predict the answer, then eliminate options. Right, some common traps in the options would be causation versus correlation. So the argument might be giving causation, and the option that is there, you might feel that that which is correct is giving correlation. What's the difference? Oh, let's say the correlation is 90% of the accidents happen during the night. Therefore, lack of sunlight causes accidents. Now, I gave you a correlation that, okay, 90% happen this, 10% happen there. Does that automatically lead to a causation scenario? No. So this might be the assumption that causation is correlation. That is the assumption in an argument sometimes. Sampling error. 10 people in a mall do not represent the entire nation. So sampling, like, data size is very small. We are inductively talking about a huge entire country, maybe. So 10 people in Delhi don't like malls. So therefore, in India, malls will not work. That is a sampling error, right? Scope shift. Now the argument discusses profit, but the answer choice is discussing revenue. So there is a big difference between the words revenue and profit, right? Ad hominem, attacking the person instead of the logic. Now there are many more out there, but these are the most common, right? You can also talk about you can talk about many strawman arguments. Lot of them are there. All right, now let's talk about decision making. Is something that XAT tests you, even through CR, by the way. They are very much, trying to test you for corporate viability. So even the critical reasoning that you will get in XAT is full of business passages, business scenarios, usually. Okay. All right, so here I end the theory part. The essence of the independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but in how it thinks. So focus on the how, not the what. Okay. All right, so guys, any questions in the theory before I again go back to the questions? We have 50 questions today. I don't know how many I will be able to complete. People who are watching, any questions with arguments, with critical reasoning, premise, conclusion, assumptions? Okay, docs. Let us begin the discussion on the questions. Let me change the screen. Perfect. Here you have a question. Let's go to the next one. Go for this. Type your answer on the chat box, okay? Okay, so let us solve it together. Any answers? Let's wait for 30 more seconds. You can pause it and also answer that. I mean, if I'm going a bit fast. So regulations in Guravia dictate that commercial aircraft are subject to government inspection and maintenance at least once per week. So what's the rule there? Once per week. Okay, so this kind of resonates, right? The Indigo fiasco that happened a few days ago. Anyways, A proposed law would allow airlines to opt out of the required inspection and maintenance. So far the regulation was that you have to check it at least once per week. But a proposed law, please look at the word proposed. So the law is not in effect yet. Okay. Opponents object that the airlines may attempt to cut costs and perform inadequate safety procedures. So if you go ahead and bring this law in effect, the opponents are saying that, oh, airlines will skirt the laws. They will kind of bypass it altogether. They will cut costs. But since airlines are accountable to their customers, now this is the author, okay, this is the conclusion coming to you. Very, very important. But since airlines are accountable to their customers and air travelers consistently rate safety their first priority in choosing an airline, airlines would follow safety procedures at least as thorough as those currently undertaken by government inspectors and maintenance workers. Okay. Which of the following would be most useful to establish? This is argument evaluation. So you are being asked to evaluate the validity of the argument. What would your answer be? So people who got option E are absolutely correct. Option E is correct. Why? Let's look at option E. Whether airline customers would have a way to determine which airlines followed safety procedures at or above the standard established by government. So let's say the answer to this is yes, they have a way to determine. Okay. If the answer is yes, then they have a way to determine this fact, then the argument is positive, going towards positive direction, that yes, they have an incentive because it all depends on the consumers, yes or no, airline business. But if the answer to this is no, that they don't have a way, then the argument is weakened. So the answer to this question as a yes or a no is strengthening or weakening it. This makes it a valuable question. All right, any doubts, let me know. Go for this. बिना क्वेश्चंस के गाइस कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, क्वेश्चंस करो। Okay, so let's solve this together. The analytics department of a company published an urgent document to directorate members. Okay, the core of which being a warning of the inefficiency of a certain strategy utilized to improve the performance of level 4 employees in the company. Now we don't know who these level 4 employees are. Okay, तो भाई इनएफिशिएंसी के लिए वार्न किया और पर्टिकुलरली लेवल 4 एम्प्लॉइज के लिए किया, a certain level of employees. ठीक है, the document contains a graph displaying the improvements, all of them positive, in the performance of the level 4 employees. अरे बाप रे, ये तो अजीब बात है. The document was labeling positive performance of the level 4 employees in the company, right, since the implementation of the strategy. Which strategy? इस स्ट्रैटेजी को, जो ये सर्टेन स्ट्रैटेजी, ठीक है, अब ये सर्टेन स्ट्रैटेजी को बुरा बोला है, लेकिन डॉक्यूमेंट जो दिया है उसमें पॉजिटिव दिखा रहा है परफॉर्मेंस, राइट. अब विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इफ ट्रू बेस्ट रिकंसाइल्स द सीमिंग डिस्क्रिपेंसी. तो भाई पैराडॉक्स को क्या रिजॉल्व कर देता है यहाँ पे, इज द क्वेश्चन. पैराडॉक्स है ना, उसने बोला कि भाई इनएफिशिएंट है तुम्हारी स्ट्रैटेजी, और फिर डॉक्यूमेंट में बोला है कि स्ट्रैटेजी के बाद परफॉर्मेंस लेवल इंक्रीज हुआ है चारों level 4 employees ka. So how is this reconciled? By which option? Tell me. Without questions, guys, you won't improve. People who are watching, please answer the question. No answer, no pain, no gain. Simple. So what is the best option that reconciles the apparent discrepancy? थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लग रहा है? To be honest, चलो you थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लग रहा है? जरा बताओ. To be honest, how complicated do you think this is? If you are taking XAT, this should not be really complicated. It should seem very easy to you. So that's why I'm here, maybe. Okay, now let's look at option A. Although the performance of the level 4 employees improved as a result of the strategy, the amount of mental effort that the employees had to invest into their work was higher than before the implementation of the strategy. Now tell me, is there a way to kind of judge the amount of mental effort? मतलब क्या कोई बेसिक तरीके से आप मेंटल एफर्ट एक्सपेंडेड को क्वांटिफाई कर सकते हैं? नो. सो ऑप्शन ए इज आउट ऑफ स्कोप. मेंटल एफर्ट इज आउट ऑफ स्कोप. अकॉर्डिंग टू द हायरार्की ऑफ द कंपनी, हायरार्की मतलब क्या, वो जो बॉटम टू अप, ठीक है, regular level 4 employees are ranked higher than the highest employee in the analytics department. Regular, ये यहाँ पे एक पॉइंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, रेगुलर लेवल 4 एम्प्लॉय, राइट. सो जो एवरेज लेवल 4 एम्प्लॉय है, लेट्स से ही इज हाईएस्ट, हायर देन द हाईएस्ट एम्प्लॉय. अब हाईएस्ट एम्प्लॉय क्या है, यहाँ पे हायरार्की की बात हो रही है, तो सीईओ लेट्स से. ओके, तो उससे क्या हो गया, मतलब even if his position is above the CEO, the average level 4 employee, does it really reconcile the paradox? No, it doesn't, because the paradox is about performance is improving after the strategy, but the analytics department's review is that that strategy is bad. That is the paradox, and option B has no impact on the paradox, right? Option C, the improvements in the performance of the level 4 employees do not yield a financial return that is significantly greater than the investment required to execute the strategy. What a wonderful option. क्या बोल रही है आपको? This is practically saying that जो परफॉर्मेंस इंप्रूवमेंट हुआ है ना, वो इंटेंजिबल बेनिफिट है. मतलब फ्रॉम अ बिजनेस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, जो ट्रेनिंग में खर्चा किया था उस स्ट्रैटेजी में, उस उतना रिटर्न आया ही नहीं. सो लेट्स से 10 रुपीज, मतलब 10 करोड़ खर्चा किया इन टू लेवल 4 एम्प्लॉइज इन ट्रेनिंग फॉर द न्यू स्ट्रैटेजी. रिटर्न आया 5 करोड़ का. भले ही वो पिछले से बेटर हो, but it is lower than the amount spent. So therefore, this option C proves that the strategy is inefficient, and it also accounts for the improvements in the performance of the level 4 employees. So C looks like a very good option. कभी कभी क्या होता है, कुछ ऑप्शंस बहुत श्योर हो जाते हैं, आप आगे बढ़िए ही मत, मतलब do not even look at option D and E, but only do this if you are 100% sure of your answer. Like over here, the answer was pretty clear that C has to be the answer, right? Not every time that would happen. Yes, for this guys, this is a pure boldface question. You are asked to give the function of the emboldened statements. Try this question, guys, okay? Give it a try. I'll be waiting for your answer for some time. Putting on mute for 2 minutes. Okay, dokes. Let us look at the question. So the question is saying that the city council has decided to increase the sales tax from 6% to 7% to generate additional revenue. The mayor argues, अब city council एक point of view है, mayor दूसरा point of view है. The mayor argues that the increase is necessary because the revenue will be used to fund public education and healthcare, okay, which are currently underfunded. So they have less money. Critic argues that the increase in the sales tax will disproportionately affect lower income families. Now, this is the opposite point of view from the mayor, okay, who spend a larger percentage of their income on taxable goods. So, एक तरफ है mayor और city council, both are aligning, and दूसरी तरफ है critics का point of view, जो कहते हैं कि भाई ये lower income family को affect करेगा. However, supporters of the tax increase contend, supporters कौन है? By the way, the mayor and the city council argue that the enhanced services in education and healthcare will ultimately benefit all residents, including lower income families. So, which of the following roles are being played by the bold statements? People who got option C as the answer are absolutely correct. Why is it C, guys? Because, ध्यान से देखिए, first is an objection that has been raised in response to a conclusion that the argument defends. अब ये argument is the author, by the way. ठीक है? What is the author defending here? And how do you know that the author is defending something? Right? पहला तो objection है ही, critics argue. Right? The first is an objection. Critics जो बोलेंगे वो तो object ही कर रहे होंगे ना, obviously. In response to conclusion that the argument defends. अब argument कौन दे रहा है? City council, तुम्हारा mayor, और तुम्हारा the third angle is supporters of the tax. Now that can be considered as the argument, right? Now C as an answer is pretty understandable. कि why C? But why not the other options is the question. Like if you are asked to eliminate the wrong options, how will you do so? Go ahead. Option A. The first is a consideration that has been used to argue. Is it a consideration? What is a consideration? Yes, I mean, it is a consideration, supposition. Argue against a plan that the argument advocates. Now, it's the first part is correct. The second is a claim that the argument puts forward in support of the plan. This is wrong. The second is not in, okay, first is pretty difficult to eliminate, by the way. Okay. The only word that can help you eliminate the option first is the word supporters. Right? I mean, is the word consideration. What about option B? The first is evidence. You can just put it out. This is not an evidence. It's an argument. It's a position being taken. Option B is easy. The first is an assumption. It's not an assumption. It is a fact. Reported fact, right? Somebody has argued something. It's a reported fact. The first is a fact presented as support for an opposing position. Okay, agreed. Option E is first part is okay. The second is a hypothetical situation used to undermine the opposition. Is it a hypothetical this? So if somebody contends something, is it a hypothetical situation? No, it happened. So your doubtful options are pretty clear, C and A. How would you eliminate A is the question, guys. Any points of views there? क्या पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है गाइस, बताइए. So option A, the problem is The first is a consideration that has been used to argue against the plan that the argument advocates. ये part बिल्कुल सही है. Second is a claim. That's the issue. Second is not a claim. Second is a fact. अब तुम बोलोगे contention है. Contention जो है उससे पहले बोला है supporters of the tax increase content. So now this becomes a fact. It's not a claim. ठीक है? So kind of difficult questions है. Let's go for the next one. Go for this. This looks like a short one. Yes, Sahil. Am I audible, Sahil? Sahil, am I audible? If I am, let me know. Okay, so here we have a very small question. इसका तो आंसर आना ही चाहिए, guys. All of the one-way streets in the city have dedicated bike lanes. City buses do not travel on any street with a dedicated bike lane. One-way streets में dedicated bike lanes है, but city buses do not travel इनमें, ठीक है? Parking is allowed only on streets that do not have a dedicated bike lane. So city buses don't travel on them. Parking is not done on them. Okay, but it is only allowed on streets that do not have a dedicated bike lane. And that means all one-way streets have dedicated bike lanes. So that means parking is not allowed in any of the one-way streets. Itna to clear hai, right? City bus number 9 travels the full length of Batchelder Avenue. If the statements above are true, which one of the following must also be true? बताइए. Waiting for your answer, guys. अननीडेड इंफॉर्मेशन को रिमूव कीजिए एंड नीडेड इंफॉर्मेशन पर रिलाई कीजिए. गो अहेड. सो आंसर इज ऑप्शन बी. व्हाई इज दैट? बी ऑप्शन इसीलिए है क्योंकि अगर इस पे बस ट्रैवल कर रहा है, नाउ इट्स प्रीटी क्लियर दैट सिटी बसेस डू नॉट ट्रैवल ऑन एनी स्ट्रीट विद अ डेडिकेटेड बाइक लेन, राइट? And if city bus is traveling on Batchelder Avenue, then it's not a dedicated bike lane, correct? And if it's not a dedicated bike lane, then it is not a one-way street because all one-way streets in the city have a dedicated bike lanes. Pretty simple, right? Let me know if you need elimination to this, okay? Go for this. Guys who are watching, please answer. Okay, let's make this the last question for today. Cowbridge Corporation has recently switched from storing data on the local servers to storing data on the cloud. Now, whatever has happened here has happened recently. Okay, a switch, local data to the cloud data. Now it remains to be seen whether the switch will save Trowbridge Corporation money. अभी तक ऑथर का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू नहीं आया है. दैट इज द पॉइंट. ओके, ऑथर का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये है दैट इट इज सर्टेन दैट इट विल, बिकॉज उसका रीजनिंग क्या है? इट इज फार मोर एक्सपेंसिव टू हाउस एंड मेंटेन डेटा स्टोरेज, ठीक है, लोकली देन टू साइन अप फॉर क्लाउड. तो ऑथर का कहना है कि भाई दिस स्विच विल सेव देम मनी. अब इसका रिलेशनशिप ढूंढो बोल्ड फेस के साथ, बोल्ड स्टेटमेंट. The statement has recently switched. Now ये तो फैक्चुअल डेटा है ना. एंड और अगर एम्बोल्डेंट पार्ट देखो तो बोला जा रहा है कि द स्विच विल सेव कॉर्पोरेशन मनी, इसलिए ये तो सपोर्ट कर रहा है ऑथर के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू को. तो समराइज इट इन योर माइंड. द सेकंड पार्ट सपोर्ट्स ऑथर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, द फर्स्ट पार्ट इज अ फैक्ट. ठीक है, तो अपना आंसर अब यहां से आप चुन सकते हैं. बताइए. The first gives the conclusion of the argument. The second introduces the situation. क्या second introduction है situation का? Obviously no. And the first is definitely not a conclusion. It's a fact. है ना? Option B. The first introduces the situation. ठीक है, बढ़िया. The second gives the conclusion. यही तो author का conclusion था. Option B looks like a good option. Option C. The first gives the conclusion. वो conclusion नहीं है. It can be out. The first D option. The first makes a refutation to the argument. Refutation is rejection, disagreement. वो तो out है क्योंकि वो तो introduction है. Option E, each states the conclusion. Both of them are not the conclusions. तो इसीलिए आंसर क्या बन जाता है आपका? B. Right? Is any doubts? Let me know. और क्योंकि आप लोग ज्यादा participate नहीं कर रहे हैं तो I will end the session here. But I would love to hear from you more, and I would love to get to know what kind of doubts you have. तो chat पे थोड़ा सा active रहिए, ठीक है? अगली बार से. अभी अगर कुछ डाउट हो तो पूछो फटाफट. If you have any doubts, let me know. XAT का आप लोगों को पता है पूरा फॉर्मेट, स्ट्रक्चर? हैव यू स्टडीड इट? जीके सेक्शन को कैसे हैंडल करना है वगैरह वगैरह. टेक एज मेनी मॉक टेस्ट्स एज पॉसिबल. ठीक है, मॉक्स का जो एक्सपीरियंस होता है ना, दैट टीचेस यू अ लॉट काइंड ऑफ. इट गिव्स यू अ डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द टेस्ट स्ट्रक्चर. मतलब अभी भी आफ्टर हैविंग taught for 10 years, when I take mocks, it's a different experience. And when I'm teaching, it's a different experience, right? CAT से पहले के जो mocks थे, XAT के पहले के जो mocks हैं, बहुत defining होते हैं ये. The better analysis you do of the mocks, the better outcome you get. ठीक है? Any doubts? Let me know quickly. चलो, have a good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bugs bite. Bye.